start our blacks. You might not need to. With the black, I like to mix it from the colors I used in the turtle. And the main reason for that is color harmony, even though it's still going to be a really dark color. If it's the colors you already used in here, then it's going to look more natural. Sometimes what happens with black is it looks too stark compared to the colors that you already used. So in our turtle, we'll mix a black. Doesn't matter what brush you use for mixing, but when we start painting all these little parts, it's probably best to use a brush that's fairly small, so maybe a 6, 8, 3 or 4 could work if you have one, but not a long rigger brush. So not one that is too long, because sometimes they're a bit difficult to manage. So does everyone have a smaller brush? A smaller one. So, and actually just a note on numbering of brushes, there isn't a standard across the board. So sometimes, like I think this one I have here is a 12, and you know, this one's supposed to be an 8, and they're almost the same size. So it all depends on the manufacturer, how they number the brushes. But, and then the other thing to know about brushes is some of them are synthetic, some of them are pure animal hair, and some of them are a combination of the both. So this one here is actually a combination of both. That's the silver black velvet. This one I recently bought. It's an Escoda Perla, and it's a really nice brush. You'll see I'm going to be using this today, even though it's very detailed work that I'm doing. And don't worry if your marks aren't perfect. In the end, they're going to look pretty good. They don't have to be perfect. Some of these marks, like these ones up here, look bluer, and other ones look blacker. So that's the other reason to mix your own black, because you can have some variation in the color. I haven't taken the mask off mine yet, but if you like, you can take the mask off. It might help because you'll know where it is, especially if you added some down here. So you can do that with a, there's a special masking remover that I don't have one with me. Does anyone have one with them?
I used an eraser.
Tape. Tape will help as well. But I'm just going to use my finger because I'm too lazy.
Even the fin, you want the masking off the fin as well?
Yes, everything at this point, yeah. So to help us see exactly what we're dealing with, let's see if I can wax. Okay, I actually have. You can use an eraser too, and the some of these pencil marks that you find can be erased at this point as well. So if you see any pencil marks showing up, you can remove those. And you can feel the paper and see where where you've missed any parts. So at the top of his head, he has some pencil marks. Getting rid of those. And then there's going to be some rough edges here as well that we're going to soften out. So that should be good. Okay, so we'll mix a few different kinds of blacks. We're going to have a sort of a blue black. Bit of a dirty brush there, but it doesn't matter. So I used, I believe, cobalt blue. It's not a bad idea to write on the back of your painting in pencil the colors that you used in it, because if you haven't painted with it for a week, sometimes you forget, and then you go back and don't use the same colors. So I'm trying to get as much cobalt as I can there. And then I know I use some purple.
Some what?
Purple. Now you could mix your purple with your Quin Rose and your cobalt or ultramarine, but I'm just gonna grab some purple. So this is going to be my bluish dark. And then I'm going to make a second pile just with cobalt. And I used a bit of that orange, and that might help make a black. So this is almost like a warm black right now.
Sorry, Jill, what paints are we putting in that one?
I put my orange, so maybe you mixed your orange when you added it, which would have been made from probably your Quin Rose and your Gamboge, or your Quin Rose and your Hansa.
So are we putting that into what's going to be black?
Yeah, so we made a dark blue. Now we're making a brownie black, and then we're going to make a real black. So we'll have three different. Pardon me?
A dark blue with a cobalt blue?
Yes.
Okay.
You can put a bit of ultramarine in that as well. So if you look at the difference between those, this is quite blue, this is almost a little bit of a warm dark gray.
Did you put the orange into your purple? Is that
Yes, yes, I put
Your cobalt blue?
I put in some purple, and then this blue one was just cobalt and purple. Yeah, and then I had cobalt, purple, and orange.
Well, that made that black.
Yeah, and now I'm using my burnt sienna. Does anyone not have burnt sienna? Looks like. So the combination of burnt sienna, ultramarine, and cobalt is going to create a pretty dark color here. And then if you have neutral tint, or even, well, probably neutral tint, that's going to give you darken that black. So this one is pretty black. It's still got some of the colors that we used, and I would say it's a cooler gray. So by that it has more blue in it. And then we're just gonna test those out to make sure they're dark enough.
Just looking at the colors from here as opposed to on the, okay.
Yeah, if you want to come up and see the colors, that's good too. So this was my darkest, which still looks kind of gray.
And what was that combination again?
This what we added neutral tint,
Neutral tint.
burnt sienna, ultramarine, and cobalt. So this one is my purpley gray, and it's not very dark at all.
I don't think I have burnt sienna.
Okay.
I got burnt umber and burnt.
Oh, burnt umber will work, yes. And that's, so these two might not be dark enough, because if I look at, well, some of that is fairly light. It might be okay there.
That one I mixed looks brown.
Yeah, so if it looks brown, then it has a bit too much red in it. Add a
Okay.
tiny bit more cobalt to that. So
So we're just doing the black shade now.
we're,
You got different
yeah,
colors.
now I'm going a little darker, because when I look at that, I think that is a bit too light. So I'm trying to put more pigment into this puddle.
And in that puddle is
This is just blues
Just
and
blues.
purples.
blues and purples.
Now this one we have blues and purples, but we also have orange. So I'm gonna add my orange into that. And that's what helps it go a bit, a bit brown. If it's too brown,
Yeah, oh yeah, it's brown.
add more cobalt or,
So blue and purple, blue and brown.
yeah, so you want, this one, we added the orange to, so it had ultramarine, cobalt, and then orange. And see if you can get to that kind of color, which is a bit of a browny black.
And this is going to be for what? For the-
This is gonna be for all these dots.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, the dots.
Yes.
Oh, gotcha.
So now, and make sure your brush is dry if you need to darken some of these, because if your brush is not dry, you're going to be adding more water and not necessarily more pigment. So I'm now testing, oops, I made a mistake there. I'm now testing the darkest black to see how dark I can get that. So I'm just adding, and then I'm gonna go back to this blue and see if I darken that anymore. This is one of the big challenges with watercolor painting, is getting your paints dark enough. So see if you can get them darker than what you did previously by just adding more pigment to them. So the first one is purples and blues. And the next one has oranges in it. I think this one's dark enough and that one's dark enough for mine. But now you have three different versions of black. And your puddles should be fairly big. So they should be, a 3 or a 2. Although we can start with the lighter colors and do those first, so there's less of the lighter ones, I think. Okay, so see if you have 3 different variations, a blue, a brownie blue, and then a black. Doesn't really show up too much of the difference on here, but it does on the palette. Can you see the difference? What we're gonna do is we're gonna start with our lightest mix. So I'm gonna take my small brush again. I'm gonna use this one. Not a lot of water. I'm gonna dab off my brush, and then I'm gonna pick up my lightest color here, and in my case it's my blue. And I'm gonna just start filling in these marks here. And I'm just gonna go around and do them. All the ones with the blue tint. And at the top, where he's got the highlights, I added a little bit of water before I had that blue go up there. So it kind of fades out a little bit. So I'm gonna just keep doing that. Filling it in. I'm gonna fill in a couple of spots here. And then as it goes around the corner of his head, I'm gonna add that little bit of water at the top so that it's just a little bit lighter, if that makes any sense. And then this kind of goes around his eye. There's one up here. And if you put it in too light, you can do the opposite. Instead of making it lighter, you can make it darker at the bottom. This one kind of goes on that angle. And then he's got a few dots around here that we're just gonna put in. Some of these dots are kind of light. So if I add a bit of water, I can have these dots that are kind of lighter. And then underneath, this one is less blue, it's a bit darker. So I'm gonna pick up the darker mix and put this one in. And once you do all of these, you can always adjust it if it's not quite the way you want it to be. And then he's got kind of a line that goes all the way around his eye. Doesn't have to be perfect. He's got, I guess it's a nostril, and that's right here. And that is pretty dark. So I'm gonna put that in and then just keep working around. These ones are all fairly dark, so I've switched to my dark mix, my blackest black. And it doesn't matter if it's exactly the shape. Nobody's gonna look at your reference photo. So all these dots get filled in. Now he has some really light dots on his nose, but I think we'll skip those for now because one, I don't have enough room here to do them. And maybe we'll get a better view if we get all the darks filled in first, and if we want to go back and add some lights, we can. So he has a lot of dots on this fin, and I'm debating whether I use the middle mix, because I don't want to use really dark over there because that's kind of in the background. But we'll just fill in these, and it looks like there's a bunch of dots going down almost in rows there, but here they're thicker. There's some dots over here, and some of them kind of merge in together. So that's probably all I need there because I don't want too much emphasis on that. Working my way around, there's some lines that are here, and I'm just making them as dashes, and they mirror the shape of his neck. So just filling those in as dashes. And then same thing here, although the dashes merge together and they help define this top of his fin. Here we'll probably have to add more green because it's quite white on mine here, but I'm going to put the darks in first. And then these wrap around. Okay, and I think I'll do the back fin in blue, my bluish shade. And this is almost all black at the bottom of this.
You're doing kind of dots there?
Yeah, I'm just making them dots. Doesn't have to be exact, but these are kind of blue and these were kind of brown over here. And now we get into the parts here. I think it's darker at the bottom of his fin. So we'll start with our darkest darks there, and those are closest to us. So that might make sense. And I'm just filling all of those in. Some of them have a hint of blue on them. They're probably too small to put water on there. What we'll do is we'll just take cobalt on its own and maybe put a bit of that blue around the outside. I think we'll do that with the back. We're going to do a wash over all of this, so maybe we won't worry about that. We'll just concentrate on getting the shapes in here. And if there's blue that we need to add, we'll add that after.
to the darkest one now, Dale?
Yes, I'm working with the darkest. So I don't see too much variation down here. It's only when we get up at the top of the wing. These look pretty dark to me, but they seem to have a blue haze around them. And we're gonna add that blue haze after the fact. So I'm leaving plenty of white space here. And over here, they almost have a yellow tinge to them. So when we do the glaze over top, it's gonna have a yellow tinge at the end of these shapes here. And these shapes get quite big, but you wanna leave a bit of white at the edge so that we can add that yellow bit. And up here, it's almost like they merge all together. And these ones in here are really small. Yeah, I haven't used much of that purpley color. The only place I really see that is more on these, the part of the shell. And there's a tiny bit over here, but not a lot. Is that someone's phone? Oh, it's Judy. Yeah, there's a bit of blue in this area too, so if you do these small, we can add the blue. If you run out of paint, of your darkest dark, you can mix it with your blue as you come up here. Because it gets bluer as we go to the top. And if your paint is drying out, just add a tiny bit of water to it and you can kind of revive some of it. So these ones up here are quite blue. I'm going to mix a thin cobalt. And it's going to be the extension of these ones that almost look like they're wrapping around his wing.
Yeah.
So this is a very watery blue. It's going to dry a bit lighter than what you see right now. And kind of curve them over with the shape of his wing. You could even go more water, just plain water, and extend them out a little bit. But make sure you leave some white, because there is a fair amount of white still on the front of the wing.
Still, I'm losing where you're putting that in. The very watery blue is
On,
on the edge.
yeah, just on the edge, and I'm kind of making sure the shape curves down and under so that it mirrors the way his wing would be, or his fin. And we'll add a glaze to all of that so it doesn't look so white after it dries. Okay, so they're coming along. We should probably look at the eye. The shape on my eye is a bit distorted here, which is kind of interesting. Maybe we'll do it big first, as a practice. What I'll do is I will mix a green to show you. So around the eye it's green. Can we see this? Yes. And then I make this a bit thicker so that you can see it better. Inside the eye, to me, it looks a little purple, so I'm going to go with that purpley brown mixture. And I'm just going to try not to touch this green edge. Yours will not be wet. Mine is, because I just added that green. But I would say the purple you can put in first and just do the shape of the eye like that. And then when you go in with your black, make sure it's super thick. You could even use your neutral tint, but it should be almost dry when you go in with your black. So if the brush isn't doing that, then it's too wet. So you want a really dry mixture of your black so that it doesn't spread too much into that purple. And you can leave a little highlight if you want. So in other words, he's got a glint in his eye. Not too big. And then where it goes into the green, you can put a bit more dark. It's got some green. So I haven't reloaded my brush. I just have that original black that I used. And if I need that to be darker, I can go in and make it a little darker by just going straight into my palette and grabbing that paint. So that's how you would do his eye. If it blends in here, that's okay because it makes his eye kind of attached more. So let's try that on our actual turtle. So we went to our purpley mixture. If your mixture is more brown than purple, then you could always add a bit more, make it a bit more purple, but I'm gonna go around with the purple. It's going to merge into this little mark here. It's much smaller, so I'm dealing with a real small piece. And it looks like, so I want to make sure I'm super thick with my black when I'm ready, so I'm testing it. That's too wet. So my brush has to be drier. That's getting better. That's about right. So if it's dry enough, I know that won't spread too much into the purple. And I want to leave that little bit of light. So that's my first goal, to have a tiny bit of light in there. Okay. And this seems to cover all that white. And that's about it. So once that dries, you'll notice the difference between the purple and the black there. And that is his eye.
Bill, what colors did you use for your green?
My green, I just did a practice eye, so it doesn't really matter. The green that was here is actually, there is some green, but that was the one we originally painted there. So you don't really have to do this outside. I was just demonstrating that.
What
So
colors would you use though for your green that you use there on the turtle?
this green, I believe, was the Hansa and Cobalt.
That's the cool.
Yeah. And that is our next stage, to do this darker green on the bottom of the turtle. The other thing that you may need to correct is some of these lines. Like in mine, it doesn't look like this kind of curves up when it should really be going straight through. So we can correct that. We can correct any of these white parts that look abnormal, and we can correct any of this masking that doesn't look right. It doesn't look smooth. So some of you have an issue where
So, yeah, we do.
the masking is messy.
Yeah.
You know, these lines aren't very nice. Some of you, the lines were too thick. So you can do this with a scrubber brush, but you probably need a fairly thin one for some of them. So you could use just a small brush. And basically what I want to do is I want to take this line and I want to soften it.
So your brush is wet.
My brush is wet, but not too wet.
Okay.
And I'm just softening up that line. And my suggestion is you do that in different spots and then come back to the spot. So this one here, I might want to extend this dark color out a bit further. So I'm just going in and, you know, making that softer. This one here, there's too much white. So same thing. Relatively dry brush though. If it's too wet, it's going to pick up too much paint.
Yes, I made a mess.
Yeah. If you want to come up and watch this, it might be easier than watching it from the back. Oh, I got some mess on my paper there. Oh, I'll show you how to clean up that. So each one of these are kind of a different problem. So this one, it didn't come down further enough. So I'm taking a tiny brush, and you have to watch with these tiny brushes. Sometimes they have water droplets on them, and the water droplets come down. And so I'm just waking up this pigment here and kind of smoothing out this whole thing. And you'll notice in the picture sometimes these are kind of fuzzy, so it's okay if they're fuzzy. Checking the water on this brush. This one here, same thing. I just want to extend that out a little bit to smooth it out. Now some of you might have ones where you want to push it back more, like maybe here. I want to get rid of that, so I'm actually going to use a scrubber brush, which is very stiff. Some of you have smaller versions of this. In the beginner kit, some of these are quite thick, but that's probably actually a bit too thick.
Yeah.
Do you want a smaller one?
Yeah, if you have a smaller one, that might be good. Okay. Yeah, and always test them because they hold a lot of paint. So sometimes they have color on them. So let's try that one. We want to get rid of this stuff here. So I just go in. You got to dab it off. Sometimes a paper towel is even better than and that lifted that one out quite effectively. You have to keep dabbing it off though, so that it's nice and clean. So that helped that. Here you might want to do that. So I'm getting the white back in these cases. Trying to get the white back. You can even do this. You can use your paper towel and dab some of it up. Let's get the white back here. The other thing this does, this particular one, is it gets rid of pencil lines. If you didn't erase your pencil lines nice enough, it can get rid of those. Make sure your paper towel is clean. So it's kind of giving some of that white back. So this is a slow process. You have to be patient. This one, I'm going to come in at a different angle. And wipe that out. Now here, I got a big mess.
It's a fly.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lure.
I
Yeah.
thought it was a dragon.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, we're making it better.
yeah.
Now you don't feel so bad.
No, I don't feel
Yeah.
so bad now.
Yeah, just keep going.
Oh, I made a huge boo-boo, but I covered it up.
Yeah,
Yeah, beautiful.
yeah. Worst case scenario, if this doesn't work, is you can always take the magic eraser. Do I have any in here?
What does it look like?
Oh,
Mr. Clean.
Oh, that. Oh, Mr. Clean, that's right.
Yeah. So you can take this guy,
Oh, yeah.
if you can
could
get
put
it
a mat
out.
over it too, eh? Like,
Yeah,
over it if it's not in the.
Is that actually
Yeah.
a Mr. Clean?
it is a Mr. Clean
Okay.
with no Febreze in it because the Febreze ones don't work as well. And it might rough up your paper, but don't worry about that. Just let it dry. And that'll get rid of that area. So who said you couldn't correct your watercolor?
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what you would do. There's small ones of these. The other thing you can do is just smooth out lines around the edge just by very lightly going around. So you can do that.
So is that supposed to be a soft edge or a hard edge?
That's more of a soft edge, and this one is more of a hard edge, but it's kind of jagged. So I can, soften it a little bit. If you have a nice edge, maybe you just leave it. That one's not so bad. Okay.
There, it works.
There. Yeah.
Magic.
This one here looks kind of weird, so let's just soften that out. And when you do that out into the background, you probably are better off, wetting it further out so it blends.
Put any of that green stuff underneath there?
The grasses.
The grass?
I wasn't going to.
Okay, if I need to add some blue.
Yeah. Yeah, we may add additional dots.
I've just got a line.
This one looks really strange. That was supposed to be this highlight here, and again, just scrub it out. So there's probably going to be quite a bit of that. If you want to bring something back, maybe this shape here is not very good. Here I would use a smaller one though, because that looks a little bit too dangerous to go into that. Because this is white against, oh,
No, it's okay.
Okay.
It's just that when you're there, there's about a 3-second delay.
oh, is there?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then it comes on. It's kind of like you're in, I don't know,
The time zone?
Europe or someplace. You're talking.
Yeah. So again, just smoothing that out a little bit and getting some of that curve back that was there. And sometimes it takes some dabbing to do that. And notice it will pick up that paint, especially if you're going into the dark. So a lot of times what I'm doing is I'll look at a painting after it sat there in my office for a while, and I'll go, oh, it needs some softening there, or it needs whatever.
What are we gonna end up doing here? Because
So-
we've got the pencil mark on the edge.
Here. So again, you can use one of these scrubbers to get rid, or an eraser
Oh,
to
you
get
just wanna
rid of.
Make it disappear.
Yeah, you can just make it. The scrubbers actually work better on getting rid of pencil marks. They're very effective. But you have to make sure they're clean.
Wow.
So that, so what else do we think we should do? Maybe you have, now this is a tougher issue. Let's say your blacks merged in together. You really need to make sure that this is completely dry before you start scrubbing that. But here, I have a bit of an issue with that one. So I can do that.
If you look at the picture, it's bluey anyway.
That's right, yeah, it kind of blends in together. So it's okay if that happens in a few spots, and they don't have to be all hard edged. This is probably just the masking wasn't removed properly. Ooh, wrong bucket. And here, they really are covered with a blue, but you could glaze over that. So what glazing means, I think some of this is still here, so if this is completely dry, and this is completely dry, we can add a coat of color. And let's mix some color here.
Do you want a cleaner?
This will do. So I'm going to mix some cobalt. And I'm going to take a clean brush. So most of this is blue where it divides, except here it's pretty white. So if I take a clean brush and I wet over top of this,
Oh.
and then I add some of that blue, it will fade out all that section.
Huh.
And I want it to
But you
be
said it had to be dry before you did that, right?
completely
Yeah.
dry, yes. But I want it to be gradual, so I'm just adding plain water there. So now it's looking more, it's probably bluer at the back here. So it's helping to fade that out. Just make sure that your paper is not dry in these spots. So here you can see it was dry probably when I did that part. And then you can do the same thing by glazing over the wing or whatever it is.
Can you see if you can't see the, all of a sudden I thought, oh, you can, okay.
I can see it, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so if I want more blue here, it looks almost like the top of this is blue. So I've got to glaze the whole thing. And if it's not completely dry, you're going to start blending your black in, but just to show you. And then I'm going to add a bit of that cobalt into different areas here. So it gives it some depth. And I can also do that at the bottom, because I have this issue where, I keep going into the wrong one. I have this issue where some of these areas are not dark enough. So it's definitely dark going down here. And it's almost purple in this part here. It's dark on this back wing or deal.
I wondered what that thing was.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you call them wings or fins or what. Yeah. Flippers, yeah, maybe flippers.
And would you actually put yellow in here?
Yes, we can do that as well. I still don't like the shape of this, but it's too wet to, because I wet everything here, it's too wet to improve that shape.
And you don't like the shape because?
Because this doesn't go in a nice line.
Oh, okay, I see what you
This
mean.
goes up a little bit.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
See what's here.
Yeah, I didn't see it, so I thought, oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm seeing that your turtle has genitalia there.
Yes, he does. He's looking for a mate. But you can always scrub that out once it's dry. Yeah.
How'd you do these, I must have missed that, those lines down,
Yeah.
going this way?
Yeah,
Yeah.
See
I
on the
just-
fin? or
I
on the-
just took the cobalt and extended it down a bit. It's not quite as nice as this, but
it gives that
again,
rounded look.
yeah,
Yeah.
it does, yeah, and I couldn't get that, yeah.
yeah, but you could scrub that out at some point. Rid of that drip. So those are all the things just to correct it.
Okay.
Well, see you next week.
Yeah.
Look at mine.
Yes, and who's
Is this our last
scrub?
class, though? Yeah?
No, you just keep going, you buy more art passes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you want to take a break, you can take a break.
Oh, yeah, the big one. That one was.
Over the holiday weekend. 'Cause everybody can participate in this one.